All right, well, let's go ahead, Doug, and get started. Thank you so much for putting this together today. And Doug Bass is one of our chief solution architects. He's been with integration and doing integration for quite a long time. So, Doug, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Doug Bass. I'm a systems and solution architect with the ConnectALL product line. I've been doing integrations in a wide area of industries over the years, and have developed quite a few products over that time in this space. And one of my passions is also sailing in the ocean. I hope to sail across the Pacific Ocean someday. More about what we're going to talk about today. As Lance mentioned, I have some brief slides to talk about the ability to use ConnectALL to integrate the applications within your DevOps pipeline. We're going to talk about why you would want to do that, how the product can help you do that, and then we'll go through a brief demo that's demonstrating Jira's and Jenkins and how they can all be integrated together as an example of this tool integration. So why would you want to integrate all the tools in your dev pipeline? As you know, our industry has evolved from the early days of developers and coders pretty much doing everything from analysis and design, identifying the requirements, doing the coding, testing, and rolling it out by maybe running a simple little script and starting up a web server. Those days are pretty much gone now. We're now depending on tools and departments and teams in different environments to accomplish all of those many goals in this more complex environment. And of course, the challenge is how to get these many teams and applications to work together seamlessly so that they can accomplish that end goal of getting that product out to market as quickly as possible. One of the challenges has been, sure, we can push everything out, push everything to the end, but then also getting that information back from each of those stages back into the early stages are really, really important. And we're finding that out more and more as we expand this DevOps world and how we can make those teams work more efficiently. We're finding out that feedback loops are really important. Be able to amplify those loops to streamline your delivery processes, to increase the velocity, to make it faster, to push out. Maybe you have a hot fix you need to push out quickly, or maybe just your new release and ways of increasing that velocity, and as a result of improving the agility of your DevOps pipeline. Of course, one of the parts of that that's now becoming more and more valuable is how you implement your continuous delivery and continuous integration into your pipeline. Instead of running a series of manual tests and waiting for the results of the test, more and more companies are now running automated tests, maybe every night or even on every check-in, doing builds more often. Some large companies are doing thousands of builds a day, thousands of releases a day. We're not all in that phase, but in order to get there, this is the kind of system that we need to get into, is with the feedback loops, ability to get the information about going both forwards and backwards, be able to get everyone to operate and do their job more efficiently. So as a result of pushing this information, this value stream down to the end of the pipeline and getting information back to increase that agility, what are the outcomes of that? Of course, quality and velocity. We want to be able to accomplish that. Executing your build and your test scripts with your tool is just one example of that. Maybe communicating metrics, communicating status back so that everybody is aware and familiar with what's going on. This is all through using your real-time feedback loops within your automation tools We have a lot of information that's in these applications, these silos, and the objective is to get this information out and make it more generally available to all of the other teams involved in the process. We also want to reduce the dependencies or make it more efficient for the different teams to work together. We'll have an example of that in the demo, how we go about doing that. And then also we want to be able to react faster to whether it's vulnerabilities, market pressure, defects in a release, whatever it is, we want to be able to react faster to all those influences within our release process. So of course, these days we have our connected tool change. We're using maybe some application for support, another for planning and architecture, gathering requirements to run your test, maybe some central dashboarding capability, whether it's Jira, ServiceNow, or whatever application that you use to sort of bring all this together so the developers are aware of what are the needs for development, and then eventually to push all this out to your build and deploy systems. So the nice thing about the feedback changes is it's not only pushing data into the system, but it's also circulating the information. So everybody has better information for decision making. So the integration we want to accomplish is to slash the manual effort within the end-to-end process, improve the time to value, provide immediate feedback. So as soon as we know a build has gone wrong, a deployment has gone wrong, or there's a hot fix that needs to be worked on, we want that feedback as quickly as possible into the appropriate teams. Enhance that collaboration between the different teams, make it easier. We don't want to have to schedule a meeting, wait for that release meeting day after tomorrow. Let's get all that information out to the parties that need that information and move everything in the process more quickly. And we also want people to continue to work in the tools that they already use. If you're used to using Jira or ALM or Jenkins or whatever, there's no reason for you to learn another tool to figure out how to do your job in some other tool if you can just as easily do it within the same tool you're used to using every day. And of course, reducing human error. If we're having to copy and paste and move data back and forth manually, then that just leads to the human error, maybe a missed step in the process that slows everything down. So with the ConnectALL integration platform, we want to make it as easy as possible to connect multiple applications within your data stream. We try to eliminate the need for plugins, administration assistance. We want to be able to create these integrations as simple as possible. It's all point and click configuration. We don't need to do a lot of scripting or programming. I'll show you the example that I have in a minute where we do a little bit of it just to increase that flexibility. What we want to be able to do is to use ConnectALL as your integration hub, as your base platform on creating integrations, but it's not the end. We want to show you how you can use ConnectALL to integrate even applications outside of our supported products. So when you're using ConnectALL, you install it with one simple install script. It's completely UI driven. You can do pretty much everything within your browser to configure what data you want to configure, as well as your monitoring tools to see what data is being synchronized back and forth. And all this is made possible by a web front end and a background synchronization engine that processes the data as it moves between your applications. So what we're going to show today is using what we call our custom application adapter. We have about 40 different adapters or connectors that come with the product that allow you to integrate all these different applications. But you might have one or two or several applications that maybe are custom developed or applications that we don't support. out of the box. So we created a custom application adapter that allows you to integrate any application with any other application using ConnectALL. You can define your own API for this custom application to collaborate the information between the data flow that can flow in a bi-directional fashion. So the whole idea, again, is to create better connections with not only pushing data from requirements to development to operations, but also bringing that data and bringing it back through a feedback loop so that that information, maybe time to cycle, how long it took to get that release out. Bring all that information back into your development teams, your analyst teams, so that they can realize, well, we should have done something better, or we can do something better to improve that cycle time, for example. So that are my general slides about ConnectALL and how we can create those feedback loops. I have an example of that I've created, and this slide demonstrates what I want to show you. So in the upper left, we have one Jira that's used for backlog management. You could also use it for command and control. So like in this example from Jira, we're going to request a build and deployment to be done. So that request in Jira will be sent through ConnectALL into Jenkins. Now, we don't support Jenkins out of the box, but we do have our custom application API. So what I developed is a way that we can communicate that request over to Jenkins. Jenkins will kick off the build. Once Jenkins build is done, then Jenkins will communicate that status through our custom adapter back to a different Jira where our deployment engineers are waiting for the deployment status. So this gives you an overall example of how we communicate, how we can control applications, how we can communicate the status of that control back to other applications. So let me show you what ConnectALL looks like. So when you first install ConnectALL, like I said, you'll have your user interface where you can create what we call multiple application links, which are just mappings between applications. For example, with Jenkins, what I did is I mapped between Jira and Jenkins some values that can be passed back and forth. What workspace you want the build to be done. As you know, in Jenkins, there's lots of different variables that are available within when you do that build, and all that information can be made available to any other application that integrates with Jenkins. So once we create this application link, we can then create a ticket over in Jira. I'll show you briefly what it does, and then I'll go into a little bit of the details if I have time. Then I could create a ticket over in Jira, and I'm going to create a task, and that task is going to be kick off a new release, a new deployment. Maybe I have a new release, version 3.3, for example. So I created that ticket in Jira. Now, usually this would automatically kick off a build over in Jenkins. I broke down the steps so that you can see the steps a little bit more discreetly. So what I then would do is I would basically pull Jira from some other place, running a script. And what that's going to do is communicate through ConnectALL, find out what builds are ready to be built from what tickets have been created in Jira. So it went out to ConnectALL, it went out to Jira, and it found all the jobs that needed to be queued up. So it built that job in Jenkins, and as soon as it's done, then it's going to communicate that status back to our deployment Jira. So let's look over in Jenkins and see what's going on with Jenkins. So here's the build that was kicked off. And this is a very simple build. Basically, it runs a little Java sample test program that I wrote. And then it runs a test, and the results of that test can be communicated back through ConnectALL back to that other Jira. So this is the build that was kicked off by that request in Jira. I can see the output of that build. So here's my little test Java program that I ran. It executed its test. The test passed, and as a result, I could send all of this information from Jenkins back to ConnectALL and back to some other endpoint like Jira, which is what I did in this scenario. So this sends the results of the build over to Jira, and then we could look at the results over in Jira to see what was created. Again, ConnectALL is our central hub. It is how we communicate with all of these different endpoints. One of the nice things about ConnectALL is you can see as things are executed, you can see what things were executed successfully or failed. You can actually see the activity in real time as it's processing, but I can see that that build ran, build number 113. It created that status ticket over in Jira as DP 114. So let me go over to Jira, which shows the eventual status of the build. I can see that my build passed. If I want, I have a link that goes back to Jenkins if I want to see the detailed results of the build. So this is our entire pipeline that went back and forth between the applications. In order to accomplish this, ConnectALL, as we said, ConnectALL supports a number of out of the package application links or connections. We support Jira and Bitbucket and IBM Rational Products, Micro Focus, Quality Center, lots of different applications that we support. But in this example, we used our custom adapter to create an integration link between an application we don't support and an application that we do support. So there's security built into this integration, and we also have a way of configuring this from the UI. So this is the Jenkins configuration that I created. We can map fields between the two systems, so we communicate what status that we want to communicate. We also have security built in. So we have an application or an access token that we can generate that we use to actually authenticate all our REST calls to ConnectALL. To accomplish this is really from the developer's perspective of developing a script that communicates. It's simply utilizing two REST API calls. A push call that allows you to push data to ConnectALL. Like in this example, when the build was complete, I wanted to push that data to ConnectALL to some other endpoint. I would just call this push REST API with the information that I want to send. We also have a poll call, which can poll for data or query for data in the remote application, like in the case of Jira has a ticket that Jenkins needs to know about. We pull that data over, and that kicks off that script within ConnectALL. So that simple script, that simple poll script that we looked at a second ago, is simply something like this. Pretty simple. I create a payload that's sent off to ConnectALL. ConnectALL responds with what data it found over in Jira to process, and then I kick off the Jenkins build. So something very simple like that is all that's required to integrate these applications. Create the payload, do the query, get the results that come back. So it's a very, very powerful way to implement pretty feature scoped applications or connections into ConnectALL Data Hub. So that's all that I have to say in my presentation. At this time, Lance, I think you might have some questions that I would be glad to answer.
Yeah, absolutely, Doug. Great for that. Thanks for that great presentation and the slides and talking about the value of integrating your DevOps tools. And Doug shows you how you can take a look at and utilize any of your DevOps tools and have that information feed back into your tools that you're using to develop and plan and create your uh, projects with. If there's any questions right now, go ahead, please type them into the messaging section and we'll go ahead and then answer them.
Oh, good. Somebody's calling a question from the phone.
Yeah. So there's one question I had here ahead of time, Doug, was, how long do you think it would take, let's say I was going to use a tool like Selenium where I would use a script. How long would it take to do that, to actually create a integration with our generic adapter so that I could put some information in my Selenium script to create artifacts if I needed to?
Yeah, that's a really great use case, Lance. I could see I'm running a test and the test may pass, it may fail, but I want to communicate that information maybe to some other application like Jira, for example. If the test fails, I probably want to create a defect over in Jira so that somebody could be aware immediately that that test has failed and they need to maybe fix some code and resubmit a build. To do that, the addition that they would make to that Jenkins script would be that simple REST call. Come up with a JSON payload and send that over to ConnectALL, and that's what's going to be sent over to your destination endpoint like Jira. Maybe in an hour, you could code and test up something like that, and it would be very similar to the script that I just showed you where I'm asking for data from Jira. It's even easier to push it over to Jira.
So what you're saying is it would be pretty simple to incorporate all of your different tools that you can do scripting in, very straightforward to push that information with a JSON payload and create an artifact in Jira or any of our tools that we have in our integration hub.
That's correct.
Yeah. What about this scenario? I want to get a new development environment. Can I put a task in Jira and have that run a script and get me a new development environment?
Yeah, that'd be great. These days, containers are becoming very, very popular. And a lot of companies use some system to allow service requests to be created, whether it's Jira or maybe ServiceNow or Salesforce, where a ticket is created. Well, I need this new development environment, this new test environment. So what we do a lot of times is use that to trigger the build of maybe a Docker container or a Kubernetes. That ticket could be used to initiate that kickoff, spin up a Docker container, for example. So yeah, that's another good example of where something is cranked up, spun up as a result of a ticket request, a service request.
Well, great. And I have some other questions here too. Do we have a Jenkins connector which can be downloaded within the Jenkins to push? I think that's kind of what we demonstrated today, where we've created this Jenkins connector. So you could push information to Jenkins using this custom adapter if we needed to.
Right. So there's like 20 or 30 variables available in Jenkins when a build is run. Your check-in comments, who did the commit, all of that information is available to be pushed via JSON and the REST API out to some other application. Actually, all of the scripting that we've done is simply an example of what could easily be developed. This is for Jenkins, but if you were using Hudson or Bamboo or some other build system or other applications like test applications, again, it would very much follow the same kind of pattern. We do have documentation on our website how to create these adapters. And of course, what we've created here as an example, that would be available too.
So another great question is, do we have insight into code review integration? So absolutely, if you have a product like, I think it's SonarQube or even Fortify, where they're going to do code reviews and code scans, we do the same thing here that we did with Jenkins, where there's a custom adapter that can review that information, take the results of that, and actually create artifacts in other places. Let me take a look at some of these other questions here.
And while you're looking, the example of that is, again, you're using a build tool to kick off, say, Sonar. And as a result of that Sonar execution, you could send those results back to some other application.
So the other question here is what if they don't have ConnectALL? What's the alternative? Well, the alternative is you can create your own built-in tool that lets all these different tools communicate, where you could write a script and tell that to go to something in those tools directly. But what ConnectALL brings is a hub environment that allows you to easily, just by pointing and clicking from an administration perspective, set these tools up. So the other question is, so it's a REST API, not by using a plugin. No, ConnectALL is not a plugin. It is a standalone application that is a hub that connects to all these tools. There is a BI tool adapter for ConnectALL, and we actually have a demonstration coming up next week. Our next webinar, in which Doug, you can bring up that slide, is about using our database adapter to capture data for measures and metrics. So quite a bit here in the questions, and I think the last one too that I think is relevant is, what if I'm in the monitoring stage of my code in production and I find a vulnerability? That information can come back in the same way, Doug, by utilizing the generic adapter and feeding information back. That's correct too, right?
Actually, yeah, absolutely. And actually what I've seen in some systems is that they'll actually built in those test points or those points of expected, a possible failure into the application itself. And then from that, they'll communicate that information to a system like ConnectALL Hub, where that data or those alerts, alarms can be communicated out to wherever they need to go. So another good use case.
Yeah. Well, what a successful webinar we had today. I want to thank everybody for attending. You've seen today how you can use ConnectALL's custom adapter to create integrations from all of your DevOps tools and feed those into any tools you need. That is in our regular connector program, from Jira to any of those planning tools. Amplify feedback loops so you can get faster time to market and react better to vulnerabilities. And we look forward to hearing from you all more about what you saw today. And I welcome you to attend our next webinar on April 18th, where we talk about measures and metrics and how to use ConnectALL to capture those. Thank you very much.